Today we're going to be checking out something that has been highly requested ever since it got released, at least as I'm recording this about 9 months ago. Now in the past we have checked out stuff from BMask before and they have been super high quality. I've been really enjoying them, so I'm sure I'm gonna enjoy this one as well. I do also want to apologize for not really uploading much recently. Not gonna lie dudes, been feeling a bit burnt out on content, so I decided to take a break before things got a little too much for me. Hopefully moving forward I can get back into a more regular schedule, or at the very least a schedule that is more realistic to my current situation. Regardless though, hope you guys are still enjoying the content, and if you do, please make sure to go support the original uploader. Link to that will be at the very top of the description, like always. Oh, almost forgot. I do want to add that there may be certain parts that are cut out from this video. You may see some weird jump cuts here and there. Not really a whole lot I could do about that. Sometimes with BMask videos there are copyright claims when it comes to music and stuff like that is used in his projects. So yeah, if something weird happens, that's probably the reason why.
You bet, son. Which one do you want to...
The Sentry! The Sentry!
The Sentry again, huh?
Yeah!
Okay. Once upon a time, there was a mysterious hero from...
Not like that, please. Can you tell it like a comic book?
I wonder how different the comic book version versus the movie adaptation is going to be. Because I have seen the Thunderbolts movie, and honestly, probably one of my favorite Marvel movies that I've seen so far. But obviously, there's going to be some sort of adaptation that happens from comic to screen, and some things that kind of get left by the wayside.
A comic book? Okay, kiddo. No problem.
Attention, true believers! Marvel Comics presents the senses-shattering, absolutely true stories of the hero known as... the Sentry!
Incredible! With a man of your ability standing sentry, this planet has a fighting chance.
Sentry, you say?
Sentry, eh? Not bad.
Supercriminal The Void is holding prison officials hostage. I am Cranio, the man with the multi-level mind. I am always 3 steps ahead of you, Sentry.
Guest Sentry will be right there, especially if it gets him out of a date.
Oh, gee whiz, Lindy. He seems like an okay guy.
Oh, Rob, you're so decent and naive. You couldn't relate to someone like him.
Such strength from a mere human! No! That's impossible!
That's us humans. Impossible to the end. Your end, Tor.
Uh-oh. Void?
You are not a hero.
Bob? What's the matter? Is someone there?
No, nothing, Lindy. Go back to sleep, okay? It's just a storm. I'll take care of it.
Just the one outfit? Not even. Bro is not doing good. He has like a cape sort of like clipped on his back. What's that?
Once, there were heroes. For decades, in a time and place beyond our own, incredible people with extraordinary powers protected the world from the forces of evil.
Yeah.
No matter how big the threat, how bad the situation, these modern marvels, superheroes, would arrive just in time to save the day in the name of truth, justice, and liberty for all. Until... Nobody could have predicted that their greatest threat would come from within. A powerful and respected hero lost control, his tortured psyche manifesting as an unstoppable creature, dubbed Onslaught, and it threatened to destroy all of reality. An army of heroes banded together to face the monster in a titanic struggle, and through their valiant efforts, Onslaught was defeated. At a price.
Okay, I know nothing about Onslaught. That being said, I have heard the name before. And I think we showed Charles Xavier there. Was it his? Like, sort of inner demons, I guess, that came to become Onslaught?
The dust cleared to reveal a tragedy. New York was in total ruins. Thousands lay dead. And Earth's mightiest heroes were gone. The people of Earth were devastated. They had been protected against unimaginable threats, and now were left completely vulnerable. Chaos erupted in the aftermath, and with efforts to repair the damage proving insurmountable, other forces took control. Criminals, monsters, supervillains. Folks could only watch on in fear. Who could possibly save them now?
The couple that used to own that stuff isn't in any position to need it. But the closet and the bedrooms were loaded. Guy had a mouthful of gold teeth, too. You want me to go back?
Make one more sweep. Keep your eyes peeled and...
Good afternoon.
Who is that?
You're desecrating corpses. Desecrating corpses and appropriating property that doesn't belong to you. My name is Citizen V, and I'm making a citizen's arrest.
Him against
I see.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
I expect it will be. For one of us. You see, I didn't come alone. Allow me to introduce you to the Thunderbolts!
Oh shit, really? This is how they got introduced? Okay. And I'm gonna be so sad I have to cut out these bopping beats. I don't recognize any of these guys at all. Guess this is what the Thunderbolts were originally supposed to be? Or like the original cast?
What? A super battle and which heroes? What? New ones?
Cheering. They're cheering. For us.
It was a heck of a first impression. Everyone saw that day there was a chance. The actions of this new mysterious team inspired all around them, and soon word of their actions spread across the city.
Oh hell yeah.
People were thrilled. In a time when all seemed lost, the Thunderbolts were a total triumph.
Where did you guys come from?
Indeed. Even those paid to object to our actions welcome us. Truly, we have succeeded beyond our wildest dreams.
Citizen V?
Your face!
You would prefer it remain hidden behind a mask, eh? Very well. But not the mask millions have come to trust today. Instead, I'll wear a rather different mask.
An incredible sight early this morning as Leon's heroes were...
Okay, so did this group, because from my understanding at least, it's kind of like a group of villains who come together to do good, right? Although it didn't really feel that way, at least in the movies. I guess they were considered villains from their own respective stories. But then what is the purpose of this? Are we simply trying to gain the public's trust for some other greater ulterior motive? Or have we just turned over a new leaf somehow?
Finally taking chaos, more chaos, destruction, the airs off the and the actions of the
Pretty good evil villain laugh.
Baron Simo, leader of the Masters of Evil. You have done well, my Thunderbolts. Or perhaps I should use your other code names. Fixer, Beetle, Screaming Mimi, Goliath, and Moonstone. In time, my friends, the world will discover what a viper it had clasped to its breast. But by then, it will be too late. Far too late.
That's right, fearless front facers. In comics' most legendary twist, a shocking final page revealed the truth that the Thunderbolts, this new team of heroes, were supervillains in disguise.
Damn, that must be really cool. If you went into it not knowing, you were just reading and it's like, oh cool, a new team of superheroes. But wait, with a twist. I wonder if there were any other groups quite like this before the Thunderbolts? And if this was like potentially an expected trope at that point in time? Probably not, I would assume. It's just fun to think about it from the perspective of somebody who was like there at the time during those times. Because your reaction to that would be completely different from, well, somebody like me here in the more modern day, with a lot of media that has sort of taken inspiration from a lot of these comic book stories.
With their enemies gone, this dastardly band of do-badders had been handed a once-in-a-lifetime chance, with a scheme so underhanded, so brilliant, it would be remembered for years to come. But for what purpose, Marvelites? What heinous goal did they have in mind? What vile dream did they hope to achieve? What could it possibly be?
What else, you insufferable dolt? To take over the
Okay. So, the success of the Marvel Age of Comics, their second chance at this, was always their characters. Relatable, flawed, funny, reflections of us and our lives, or the lives of those less noticed. They were presented as superheroes second and humans first. We knew their likes, their dislikes, their relationships, their personal fears and failings.
Oh yeah, for sure. That, as we've been learning about Marvel, has been the thing that has really set it apart. Because it really tries to portray them as grounded human beings who get these powers and have to be more than, you know, what they really want to be. Sometimes they're the only people who can step up to the pedestal. The Fantastic Four as well as Spider-Man are great examples of this. And I guess they were kind of really what set the basis for a lot of what Marvel has become. At the very least, that's what my impression is after having learned about them.
Even their home addresses. It made them feel like real people. Superheroes were people. They mattered. Supervillains? Yeah.
They're villains.
I know. A bit of a sweeping statement, yeah? What, are we forgetting Doom, Magneto, Doc Ock, Big Wheel? No, never. Marvel had
Big Wheel. Big Wheel and Marvel Rivals when. My greatest surprise and joy is the fact that Doom is such a great character and I love him so much. Even though initially, before learning about Marvel, I had no idea about this guy at all. And the only time I ever really saw him was in the Fan 4 Stick movie. You guys know which one.
Credible villains from the start, ones that tried to break the mold in the same way as their heroes, but it was never their story. Villainy, when it began, was more of an occupation, a job, than anything else. A commodity that had grown out of their original purpose as symbols of wartime tensions before slowly evolving into regular villains of the week. And some were just more memorable than others. Even a few of the greats began more two-dimensional in their hatred, but none of this is a complaint. I love it all. It was fun watching bad guys pit themselves against the heroes, reflecting their struggles, internal or otherwise, giving them something to triumph over.
Are we leading up to the fact that like the Thunderbolts story was there to try and tell a story from their perspective instead? Because you do sort of run into the issue of some villains are more iconic than others just inherently because of whatever theme or powers they have or how their characters are presented. But we never really get to see it from their point of view, right? It's a lot harder to relate to them than it is with the heroes who are a lot more grounded. Well, grounded in the sense of comic books, of course.
And part of the charm of comics was seeing what kind of bad guy would show up next, giving the artists and writers a chance to spitball successively wackier concepts for our entertainment. A guy with a robot tail, a fella with stilt legs, a boy made out of dough. Beast people, frog people, these were, I nearly forgot.
Fish people.
These were soap bubbles, designed to either float or pop. A select few lucky enough to return if they made an impact. They mattered as props more than as people, and we just accepted this was the way things were supposed to be. But, inevitably, fans got curious. Thanks to the innovations of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's methods of storytelling, Marvel Comics developed into a vast, interconnected universe that was constantly being fleshed out, the characters becoming more and more developed within that framing, readers naturally seeing those benefits start to impact on the villains as much as the heroes, quite a few becoming heroes of their own, and many becoming way more emotionally complex. Over the years, we'd learn more about their histories, see them form alliances with fellow baddies, or even reveal aspects of their personalities that made them more compelling to revisit in new contexts. Part of this was thanks to a new generation of comic book fans who had become writers themselves, more invested in exploring those opportunities, and nobody was more invested than Kurt Busiek. Kurt Busiek had been a huge fan of comics continuity and wanted to bring his own voice to the worlds he'd known as a teenager.
That's really cool, though. Like, people who have been super invested into all this stuff, and I want them to explore this, but they're not really doing it, so I'm just gonna do it myself when I grow up.
Breaking in at DC, and finally getting a shot at his other dream company. And after he was fired from Marvel, allegedly for making Heroes for Hire too fun, okay, he span his wheels elsewhere for a while. Despite things not initially working out, it was Marvel where he'd meet an up-and-coming painter, Alex Ross, trying to pitch an anthology series of stories based around classic Marvel heroes, and looking to Kurt for advice. That evolved into them developing the concept together, and finally getting the green light to produce it for real in 1993, becoming the project that would make both of their careers. A mini-series called Marvels. The pitch was simple, to showcase the Marvel Universe from the perspective of ordinary people living in it, and in particular through the lens of photographer Phil Sheldon, observing the rise of heroes across the early years of Marvel history.
That's actually kind of interesting, because I'm sure at that point we've had plenty of stories with the heroes already, but we never really think about what it means to live in the Marvel Universe. Like, imagine living in the Marvel Universe in New York, and all this shit keeps on happening. You would think that the land prices would be incredibly cheap, and you really wouldn't want to be there. It's kind of tough because you're just a normal dude. And all this fantastical stuff is happening around you, and if any of it hits you, you're probably a goner.
Ross, like Busiek, had been a fan of that early era of comics and wanted, through his own developed photorealistic style, to try and show them the way he'd always seen them in his head. Larger-than-life tales with all the drama and artistic flair he felt they inspired others to feel, and he brought that fidelity and more to every drawing possible. That was revolutionary enough, but Busiek's contributions as a writer took it a step further. While Alex brought the scale of the visuals to life, Busiek gave everything cultural weight, showing the heroes' impact on the world, paralleling what they had reflected in our own culture, and, in some cases, presenting an unfair disconnect between their amazing feats of heroism and the terrible consequences of their presence.
That is also a really good point. Actions have consequences, regardless of how good those actions may be. may lead to something not so great in the future. And that's one of my favorite aspects when we've been exploring all these different fandoms and different lore. It's just the world building that goes on in them. A lot of series that care a lot about their world building, about how things interconnect with each other, how they grow into something new, how it affects other people and how they grow. Those are the kind of series that I think about more often than not. It just kind of latches onto my mind. I have a tendency to enjoy those a bit more than others. And maybe that's just a natural thing, or maybe it's just me. But just the love and care that taking the time to figure all that stuff out shows you just makes me care about the series a lot more.
It presented not just an ideal, but a well-argued case for why these characters were ever created, what they meant to humanity, and it resonated with those who had followed their stories to this point, and felt the same way.
Did you hear?
Oh, mutants all the time with those powers.
Can't believe they're
have to
acting
bother us anyway.
Somebody's gonna have to put a stop to it.
You people! What do you need? The world to actually end? Are you so busy digging for garbage you can't even admit to yourselves that you're grateful? Look up, why don't you? Look up for once in your lives!
Marvels became a modern classic.
Hey. Wow. Just reminds you of the Twitter mom, doesn't it? People just being mad for the sake of being mad instead of being grateful for the things that we do have. But I suppose that's just human nature. Especially, once again, if you're just a normal person and you're not really involved in all this. The heroes are doing a thing, but then the hero does an action that ends up hurting you indirectly or directly. But of course, it was for the greater good, but from your angle, like, you're suffering. You're scared. You don't want to be a part of this, but yet you are because they're different. They're heroes. So yeah, naturally you would get pretty mad about that, but it's also unfair to them. It's not like they asked for this. Well, I'm sure there are a few cases where that's true, but still, you get the point. I think at that point, it's really just a decision of not being a victim of your circumstances. Although, that is a lot easier said than done.
And it gave Busiek the opportunity to then effect real change in the mainstream Marvel universe. The success of Marvels led him to produce Untold Tales of Spider-Man, set during the character's early years to flesh out his history, adding new faces to the cast and giving old ones more opportunities to prove themselves as more than background noise. This proved equally successful, and with that track record, as well as an independent series of his own on the rise, Kurt suddenly had his pick of projects. Yet he found himself looking at the state of comics in the 90s, and remembered an idea he'd had many years earlier, based on a love of outlaw fiction.
There was a TV show called Alias Smith and Jones. The idea was you had two Western outlaws who wanted to go straight and stop being chased by the sheriff all the time. And so they made a deal with the governor that if they stayed out of trouble for a year, he would give them amnesty for their crimes.
But in the meantime, we'll still be wanted.
Well, that's true. It was really fun. Another big influence on that, on me, was when Hawkeye, Quicksilver, and the Scarlet Witch joined the Avengers. That they were three characters who used to be villains, and now they were given a chance to be heroes, and they were going to prove themselves. And because of the way comics were done back then, it was just sort of like, I want to be a hero now. Okay, boom, you're a hero now. And they didn't really explore it all that much. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to explore that? What if somebody quits and somebody else joins and it's a new hero you've never seen before? And then somebody quits and somebody else joins and it's another new hero you've never seen before. And at the end of a year or so, you've got Captain America and you've got all these new heroes. And that's when you discover that they're all secretly the masters of evil and they're doing this as a sneaky way of taking over. And I thought, that'd be fun, that'd be different. And then I realized, yeah, but readers would hate that because you'd go through a year and they'd be like, why are you doing this?
Yeah,
you know, I want the Avengers I like.
Now, at the time, Kurt had filed this idea away and gotten on with his life, but had paid attention to what was happening at Marvel's biggest rival and how they had begun to handle their villains. In 1984, Teen Titans, a series centered around sidekicks and young heroes in the DC universe, had run a story called The Judas Contract, revealing, in a surprising twist, that a key member of the team had been working for one of their deadliest foes all along. Some years later, in a Interesting. Yeah, someday we gotta get into the DC lore as well. I feel like
This may just be my perception as more of a casual to the comic book scene, but I know a lot more of the DC villains than I do the Marvel villains. Because like, yeah, thinking about it, when I think of Marvel, most of the people I'm going to picture are going to be the heroes. When I think of DC, most of the people I'm going to be able to picture are actually the villains, and obviously Batman and Superman. Like, it's kind of impossible not to. So I wonder why my perception of DC is like that. Perhaps they just have explored their villains more, or started doing it earlier than Marvel has. Or maybe their villains are just iconic in a way that can't really be replicated. Not too sure. Maybe I'll have a better answer for that once I learn more about DC.
1987 issue of DC's Legends, writer John Ostrander had revamped an old action title called The Suicide Squad, changing the premise to be about imprisoned supervillains forced by the government to carry out secret missions, the name now referring to their perceived expendability. The intended irony was that this allowed those villains, a few of them much lesser-known characters, a better chance to express their personalities, the inherent dramatic opportunities of that premise raising their value and cementing the book as a DC staple.
Yeah, honestly, the second Suicide Squad movie that they released, actually pretty good. I kind of enjoyed it a lot. The first one, maybe not so much. I think there were some fun moments, but you could clearly tell that things weren't really working out.
So, it's interesting then to see what seems to be parallels to both titles in a comic Busiek published through the short-lived Eclipse Company label. Just a few months after that version of the Suicide Squad's debut, it was called The Liberty Project, and it featured a team of teenage tearaways forced by an authority to reform. It didn't run for very long, but in the short time it did, it showed there was still life in the premise. Busiek's blend of criminal behavior and teenage angst making for so much more than a parallel rehash of either of DC's titles.
Kind of like what John Ostrander and Luke McDonnell did with Suicide Squad, except he did what I like to think of as he did the version of it that's the Dirty Dozen, and I did the version of it that's the Breakfast Club.
It proved he could write his own story about not-so-good guys, but it lacked the bite of what he wanted to do with a larger universe, and with the storyline he now saw could work with a single villain, but continued to be harder to justify with a group. There was still no way for him to see how that story could be told. Until 1997. Marvel, in a huge event crossing over many of their major titles, had devised a villain that would wipe out both the Fantastic Four and Avengers, removing them from the Marvel Universe. This was part of an extensive reboot plan, where those characters would appear in new comics with new backstories, capitalizing on a number of trends of the era in an effort to try and boost sales at a low point in their history. Yet, the other mainline Marvel comics with healthier sales would continue on, in a universe now left without its major heroes, and giving Busiek a perfect opportunity.
One of the interesting thing is there's never been a comic book, superhero universe in this situation. The heart of it has been scooped out. Right. There's this big hole in the middle. What does that mean?
Who would want to fill that hole?
Me being me, my first thought was, what does that mean to those guys on the street who look up and point when the Human Torch flies by? They're going to be really, really scared.
Rather than have the Avengers slowly phased out, he could just introduce a whole new team to take their place, easily accepted by a grateful populace, and all secretly villains in disguise. So, at a creative retreat, Busiek pitched the concept to Marvel's editor-in-chief Bob Harris.
And he went like this. He went, okay, let's do it. That's the fastest sale I have ever made.
Not only did Marvel greenlight
yeah. Especially in a scenario like that, this feels like the perfect opportunity. It also feels like a natural evolution, too. In a universe where the heroes are gone and villains still remain, they will see opportunity in that. Just another aspect of what I love about world building. It's really nice when things fit naturally in your head and they just make sense. Like, oh yeah, based on the logic of this universe, that's exactly how it would go. At least that's how I would expect it to do so.
Project. They lent into the hype. This mysterious new group was advertised in bold, flashy prints, touting them as Marvel's next big thing, going all in on calling them the Avengers replacements. Journalists caught wind of the secret and were bribed into silence by being offered exclusive interviews. A month or so before, a story was printed where ordinary folks in a bar likened their arrival to their experiences with the great heroes of the past. Peter David, who was planning a similar made-up team to show up in his Hulk series, was easily convinced to swap them out with the Thunderbolts, all to drum up hype for their debut. and even stopped the solicitation from accidentally giving the game away. Everyone pulled together to keep the secret from the readers, and when they finally bought the comic and turned to the last page, they went wild. So did the sales. This page alone was and is one of Marvel's greatest achievements, and I think its success is the culmination of everything Busiek had been working towards. It had taken a long road to get there, but in the end he got what he wanted, a fresh, villain-centric concept with a great twist, and that ensured the book's early success. Combining all its influences and efforts to push comic lore forward, Thunderbolts promised to explore villainous characters in a way we hadn't seen before, to provide great dramatic conflict, and above all, offer an uncertain future where we would ask the best question a narrative can offer. What will happen next?
Something that I do love about a lot of these retrospectives that we've been checking out is them going over the history and the real world history. And the process to getting to this point. Like, my dude didn't just come out here and write the Thunderbolts. There was a process there, a source, an inspiration, several different works that had come before it, in an attempt to try this out, until at some point, something just clicked. The universe said, yes, it's time for the Thunderbolts to come in. And so they did.
I don't think it stops there. This page didn't just launch a great comic. It changed Marvel forever. I've never seen the connections made, but the more I've read over the years, the more I see dramatic, life-altering details stemming from that decision than I think people realize. My belief is this one comic, this one page, inspired by other approaches to comics continuity, began a chain of unintended events that cascaded, domino-like, into shaping the entire modern era of mainstream Marvel. And the only way I can think to demonstrate that, as much as analyze the evolving effects of that single page, is to just tell the story. The journey isn't always straightforward. There's missteps, there's doubts, there's possibilities not yet realized. But the moments that work are so good, I think it's a story that has to be told. This is the story as I know it best. This is the real story of the Thunderbolts.
Fan out, troops! Don't let the enemy win! Give them no quarter!
They called him Citizen V, a troublesome mystery man who worked behind our lines, fomenting rebellion, disrupting order. He had no supplies, no organization to speak of, but he was inspiring in a tawdry sort of way, and that made him dangerous. The battle is won, the rebellion shattered, and all that remains is to deal with those who'd raise arms against their master. What is your opinion, Helmut? Were you in charge? What would you do to discipline these unruly slaves?
I would have them flogged, to teach them the price of rebellion without destroying their value as laborers.
Perhaps I should finish the story about Citizen V and his little rebellion.
What happened?
What happened? I killed him, of course. I choked the life out of him with my own hands in front of the men he'd led. Resistance, you see, is like much of life. It is not merely about victory or defeat, but about hope.
That's actually really cool and kind of messed up. That later on he goes up to take his name in a attempt to kind of stir the same sort of emotions within people. That feeling of hope, of a chance, right? A rebellion, just to gain their trust. The very bad that he choked out with his own hands. Insane work.
Granted, frustrated, crushed. It can control people or even countries, so long as you control it. But hope outside your control, that is truly dangerous. And that must be dealt with unhesitatingly.
Baron Heinrich Zemo was an evil man. A German aristocrat from a long line of brutal barons, Heinrich thought of himself as the best humanity had to offer. He was born to be better, to subjugate others, to prove what years of noble breeding had given the world. Qualities that, by the 1930s, fell perfectly in line with the rise of a dangerous new movement. Becoming one of the Nazis' chief scientists, Zemo created compound formulas to give himself increased vitality, and developed sinister weapons to help subjugate the world in a war against the Allied forces. Escalated from the use of ordinary citizens adopted into their belief system to similar men of extraordinary power wanting to prove their worth. His work began to achieve notoriety, experiments affecting not just the Allies, but his fellow countrymen, often the unwilling victims of his tests, and driving him to conceal his identity under a hood, working in secret from that point on. But what did it matter? He was confident victory would be theirs, and that he could take full credit once they'd won, were it not for America's superweapon. Private Steve Rogers had undergone a radical transformation of his own, from a sickly young man into a super soldier, a symbol of American justice designed to fight back the Axis powers, and specifically men like Zemo. In a fateful encounter, Captain America left his mark, and Zemo, humiliated, would dedicate the rest of his life to Rogers' destruction. The two men clashed again and again, and it would have gone on that way had he not received orders to sabotage a powerful new Allied device, a drone, that, with Zemo's input, they could turn back on the enemy. Once again, the captain set out to put a stop to the scheme, now accompanied by sidekick Bucky Barnes, but was unable to prevent the drone's launch. The two heroes desperately tried to deactivate it from the sky. Barnes would successfully stop the bomb, but appeared to die in the process, and Rogers, to Zemo's delight, fell into the frozen wastes below. The victory was short-lived. Even without the captain,
so it wasn't that different from how the movies had portrayed it. Considering that speech that we just heard Baron Zemo give, though, in regards to hope and how that can be a dangerous thing, I suppose Captain America is kind of the person who inspires hope, right? The very reason, in fact, you could say why the American forces sort of rallied and was able to win the war. You could attribute it to that. So honestly, it makes a lot of sense for them to be paired with each other. A hero and villain duo. Although I'm sure Captain America has a couple of other villains out there as well. I'm not too familiar with all of them, though.
The Allies prevailed, and, as with so many, Zemo was forced to flee to South America, hiding in its dense jungles and enslaving those within. His experiments had slowed his ability to age and led to a long and interminable existence, biding his time, subsisting on hatred, plotting his return. This came in the form of shocking news that a new team of superheroes had assembled in the West, and were led by someone he thought he'd never see again. Zemo was livid.
I thought I had gotten rid of both of them forever, but the most dangerous one still lives. Do you hear? He still lives. I must find him again and finish the job.
With renewed confidence, the Baron decided this superhero team required an equal force and response, learning of other powerful villains who had faced their ranks in the past, and promising them revenge as a team of their own, with a name that felt appropriate to the way they had been treated: the Masters of Evil. Traveling to the west, they would oppose this allied group, and together they would finally take back control of the world as the greatest possible. They lost, badly. A few times, actually. Zemo ran away, got crushed by falling rocks, died. Oops. It was, frankly, pathetic. For all this build-up, for all the respect paid to him by his followers, Heinrich's passing only cemented his legacy of total failure in the eyes of the public. And that, really, should have been the end of it. But, unbeknownst to the world, he was not the last Zemo. Helmut Zemo, the Baron's son, was very different. He was reserved, observant, calculating, and while equally deluded.
Okay, now this I did not know. I expected it to be the dude that we were following, but no, that was the father. Yeah, this is all just new information to me. While I do know of the character, I don't know anything about his history or origin.
He was the first Zemo to be born out of power, driven purely by revenge. His memory was of a loving father who promised him a powerful future, changed by his scars into something twisted, driving his mother to die of heartbreak and leaving him the inheritor of nothing. Evidence contradicts the truth of those memories and the order they took place in, but all stories Helmut told himself put the blame on the same person: Captain America. Helmut, unlike his father, had much more to prove, and decided to take matters into his own hands.
Know that your treacherous eyes gaze upon the face and form of the Phoenix!
An empty warehouse? A vat of chemicals? A hero in distress? I think we know where this is going.
Guide my hand, Father, as I avenge your death!
Don't be a fool, man!
Oh, shit.
Losing face so early in his criminal career, quite literally, Helmut felt his identity was lost before things had even begun. It seemed as though destiny itself was telling him to take on his father's mantle, to carry on his vendetta against the man who ruined his chance at happiness and prosperity. Helmut officially became the next Baron Zemo, and ensured this would be forever personal.
My father was a god to me, the greatest scientist in all the Third Reich, with a heart as expansive as his intellect. Until you attacked, Captain. You drove him mad, transformed gentility into rage, love to blind hatred.
Zemo, your father used his genius to create weapons of destruction for the Nazis.
Dude.
Whatever happened to him, however tragic, was his own fault.
It's not really what he wants to hear about right now. I mean, Captain America's making a lot of sense, and that's probably what most people would say. I think you're projecting your problems onto the wrong person here. But that's humans, that's people, that's how it goes, right? Unfortunately, even a symbol of hope like Captain America, it can't always inspire hope in everyone. In fact, by inspiring hope in some people, you may inspire the exact opposite thing in another group.
You did this to me!
Oh, goddamn.
Does this make you feel happy, monster? Are you proud of your victory? You couldn't remain dead. You had to return to haunt me, to stand as a constant reminder of my family's loss and shame.
But despite being so motivated, Helmut was never a leader. Even as Baron Zemo, Helmut's career was one passionate blunder after another, easily manipulated by the Captain's other foes, whose schemes only accentuated his own inexperience.
Red Skull?
Read any one of his early appearances, and you'll see a troubled young man with no direction, who doesn't truly know what he's doing or feeling, and who, most importantly, doesn't command respect. Perhaps it was realizing this that saw Helmut finally pull himself together, wanting to prove he could lead, reviving another of his father's plans.
The Thunderbolts?
There is not one of you who has not known the bitter taste of defeat. You have all been humbled in battles against those forces which society deems good. Often you have been beaten and humiliated by Avengers. And who are these Avengers? Their ranks constantly change, yet they remain unbeatable. How do they do it? I can tell you. It is unity. But we too can present a united front. Together, we can utterly defeat whoever rises to oppose us. We must show that we are their masters. Are you with me?
You know what? We're basically fucked if the villains discover the power of friendship.
Helmut's Masters of Evil, surprisingly, was much more effective. This team was bigger, more tactically chosen, and actually succeeded in hurting their enemies by bringing the fight to them. Taking over the Avengers' base of operations and torturing those within, Helmut sought to do to the Captain's family what had been done to his own, on a scale that was totally unprecedented. Yes, the Avengers fought back. Yes, they overcame. Yes, Helmut lost, again, but the damage was done.
That's how it goes.
And after so many years, he had finally left his mark. There was a cost, as with all these things. The last plan had not only hurt Zemo's body, but his reputation. A wider net of villains were now even more frustrated at having lost in such a huge gamble, and his efforts to move past that loss seemed increasingly manic, leading to some low points we're not going to get into, but you can if you want. It's pretty funny. Fact is, Helmut's run as Baron Zemo had peaked. He'd achieved one thing that hadn't even worked, and everything past that had gone totally downhill, leaving him more than a little peeved.
Blasted! Hiding like a whipped cur while his enemies flourish. It is intolerable! Intolerable! But no. I am a Zemo. All defeats are merely setbacks. All enemies merely obstacles to overcome. It is my destiny, my birthright, to triumph.
Hitting rock bottom, Helmut seemed to have a moment of clarity. If there was one skill he had his father did not, it was recognizing greatness in others, and he saw that while he wasn't getting the respect he wanted, the Avengers were. He saw the power they had,
So
he
what
did
if we
not. That control was not
become
forcing
them?
subjugation. That you had to make people want to be subjugated. An idea was beginning to form. He wasn't sure what it would be yet, but he knew he needed all the help he could get. It was time to assemble.
Oh, shit. Man, it's so cool seeing these ideas slowly form in his head. As he flails about doing this and that, and then wait a minute. What if? Like Carnage. These people.
You're boring, Paul. I'm sorry, but that's how it is.
Fine. Goodbye. Have an unexceptional life.
Paul Norbert Ebersol, a brilliant inventor with absolutely no social skills and no one to share his genius with. Developing the identity of the Fixer, Paul found his audience within the underworld organization Hydra, becoming one of their high-ranking officers as a start to his blossoming criminal career. This put him in contact with other villains, like his frequent collaborator, Mentallo, and eventually Helmut Zemo himself, drafted into the assault on the Avengers Mansion. Ever since, Paul continued to experience failure after failure, but kept in touch with the Baron, having finally found someone interested in his gifts, and knowing he couldn't let that go.
I'm sick of puttering Baron. Tell me you've got something for me. A new challenge? New technology? Something.
I've got something for you.
Great. I'm your man.
Eric Jostin. A simple kid from the Midwest who'd experienced personal tragedy, Jostin would join the Marines, then defect to become a henchman for the Zemos, smuggling goods for their experiments, and eventually convinced to undergo a supervillain transformation of his own. Starting as Power Man, Eric would blindly follow others in a series of unfortunate events, eventually losing the rights to his name and powers before becoming the smuggler. And when he realized that sucked, he'd arrange a procedure to take the powers of another hero, Goliath. Coasting on that identity for years, he'd discovered those powers came with strings, almost trapped permanently in cosmic limbo by their real owners, and he would have stayed there had he not known Baron Zemo.
You saved me, Zemo.
Now you owe me.
I'm yours.
Now I own
I'm
you.
yours forever.
Jostin's loyalty wasn't a question. This was simply another chance to let someone else do the thinking for him.
I can't believe it! I can't freaking believe it.
Abner Jenkins, an aircraft mechanic, had dreams of being respected in his field, but was ripped off by his bosses and laughed at by his co-workers. Frustrated, he used his skills to come up with a costumed identity, the Beetle, and set out to rob banks and defeat superheroes for attention. Instead, he got his ass kicked by the Fantastic Four, by Daredevil, by Iron Man, and most of all by a certain web-slinger he could never get the better of. Abner had tried again and again to achieve notoriety, even once as the leader of his own team, but was drowning in the oversaturated market of Spider-Man villains, and in spite of his efforts, none of them gave him the respect he craved. Abner was done.
Laughing at me, like all the others. I swear when I catch him,
Good
I'll...
evening, Beetle.
Huh?
I've come to make you an offer.
I'm in, Baron.
I mean, yeah, he wants to feel like he matters, and this is kind of the only way. He feels like he's being accepted. Man, we're really preying on all their insecurities here, aren't we?
Believe me, I'm in.
Carla Sofan, the daughter of servants, grew up around extreme wealth and power and spent her life looking in on a world she was denied, vowing to, one day, make it her own. Watching people from the wings helped her grow into a model psychiatrist, and in a bid to increase her value, she began treating supervillains. One was Lloyd Block, Moonstone, who obtained unimaginable power from a space rock. Fascinated, Carla manipulated her patient into thinking it was dangerous, then stole the stone and identity to become a villain herself. This new Moonstone, whose main foe was the freaking Hulk, proved to be an exceptionally dangerous woman, contacting Baron Zemo and hoping secretly to overthrow him, and got sent to jail for her troubles. But this was fine. Zemo recognized the talent and relished the challenge.
I mean, hey, even if she tried, she's still a very valuable person, so yeah, we'll let that be water under the bridge, eh? I'm almost certain, though, that when it comes to the Thunderbolts, they're going to be at each other's throats if they feel like they can kind of gain the upper hand. And they all definitely have their own motives to joining this group. So I'm really excited to, once the group forms, how it's going to evolve from there.
That Prussian arrogance comes through no matter what the outfit. What do you want, Zemo?
I'm offering you a choice. A place in the team, contingent on your absolute loyalty, or a return to the vault.
Considering you've made me a fugitive, I'm in.
Melissa Joan Gold, a criminal mother and alcoholic father, pushed her away from her trailer park home to live on the run. She fell in with a group of female wrestlers, the Grapplers, who, when they were denied equal pay, turned to crime to supplement their income. Melissa had changed her name to Mimi, and when the team decided to undergo experiments to get superpowers, courtesy of the Roxxon Corporation, she, with her new supersonic hallucinogenic vocal cords, became Screaming Mimi.
The poor lady's getting denied equal pay really sucks, but I guess that's kind of just how it was. This is how you create supervillains. Literally, within the comics here.
After a brief stint working for Zemo, she brought on the attention of another voice-powered villain, Angar the Screamer. And together they hit upon a novel idea, dressing as superheroes to commit crimes. They thought they'd won a lucky streak, but their luck was about to run out.
You already have experience dressing up as a superhero.
We make a great team, don't we?
You're so right, babe. You're the best partner I ever had.
Partner? But that's not all you think of me as, right? Just a partner?
No, babe. Of course not.
Right.
Angar?
Oh, shit.
One of the piggies must have got off. A lucky shot.
Please, Dave! Don't die! Don't leave me alone again! Please!
Guess adrenaline kept him going? You didn't realize? If that man was still alive, his eardrums are gone. Yo. Want to join my game?
That's the thing about this group. They needed each other. The Avengers were free agents. They all had their own lives and businesses to deal with. They were committed, but they weren't tied to the team. These criminals had a skewed sense of freedom, were either working to impress or to conquer, and were longing to have even a fraction of their enemy's fame. Other former masters could have been chosen, but would they have played along? Could they be convincingly disguised? Were they even alive? Zemo picked a team that could only exist as a team, a codependent group profiled down to the last psychological detail.
So all it comes down to him being a lot more conniving, right? A lot more strategical with his approach. We've selected these people specifically because they have to be here. They have something to gain from this. and we have some sort of leverage against them. That, or we know their weakness, so we're just kind of using them. It's like a kind of a messed up, wholesome thing that they found family unintentionally among people who they maybe don't like very much. Or I guess honestly at this point, they just don't really know each other outside of Zemo knowing all of them. In fact, I believe, we mentioned Moonstone here. She's directly tried to compete with Zemo a couple of times, but and then we have a plan, and if it works out, then she also benefits, so it makes sense why she would stay around. At least see how it progresses.
More open to being controlled, and with time, he would make them an unstoppable force for evil. But during the gathering, his mind had been changed on the method his revenge would take. His original plans were vague, something about replacing the Avengers or infiltrating them, swooping in at the last minute to take control. But this would become a non-issue rather quickly, robbed of the chance to destroy his foes by the actions of an unpredictable new threat.
Zemo's original plan mirrors the plan of the author, right? Originally, of having characters swap into the Avengers and ending up revealing this as all as villains. That's a really cool addition to add in there.
Zemo felt hollow. The thrill of the plan was the chance to take personal revenge, but with the heroes
now
gone,
what?
That version of the plan no longer held any meaning. Finding a new purpose seemed unlikely. And yet, that purpose sprang from the most unlikeliest of places.
And then, just the other day, the FF and the Avengers died, fighting some clown named Onslaught. Just my luck. He didn't get Spider-Man a Deadhole, but that's the way.
The FF and the Avengers gone? Maybe we should apply for the job. Gotta be some money in it somewhere.
Ah.
It could work. It could actually work.
And so the Thunderbolts. Alrighty, my dudes. Things are just heating up, but unfortunately, I'm gonna have to call it here for now. But anyways, dudes, thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed your time here, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. But I'll catch you guys in the next one.